You're watching PowerNation. Today on Detroit Muscle, we're blacking out our 69 GTO and then dropping the body back on the freshly powder-coated frame.
Plus, we finish up our fuel system and help our Pontiac weather the storm.
Hey guys, welcome to Detroit Muscle. If you've been following along with us, you know that we've been building a pretty killer little Pontiac, and we've put forth quite a bit of effort. When this 69 GTO came into the shop, most of her was stripped down and gutted to the frame. Thankfully, the frame was in good shape, so it didn't take much to tear the rest of it down to the bare bones so we could prep the chassis to send it off to the powder coater. So all those old rusty brakes and suspension components took a one-way trip to the scrap heap.
Well, when we picked up this GTO, it was missing its heart, so it gave us a creative license to do what we wanted, and our plan for this was something that was enjoyable to drive. And with this case, it was pretty much out with the old and in with the new. After we got our chassis back with its shiny new powder coat, we slapped in a quick performance rear end, kitted out with some heavy-duty brakes. Then we married the engine and transmission back on the frame and locked it in with some new hardware and motor mounts that took a little bit of convincing to fall in line. We then got our cross member cinched to our American Powertrain TKO Transmission. This is going to help us hold everything in place when we're putting those ponies to the pavement.
Luckily for us, we started with a pretty good old car, so we didn't have to replace a bunch of panels or fix a bunch of rust. But we were planning to paint this thing black, so you guys know what that means. There was a couple of rounds of primer and a whole lot of blocking that had to happen. Blocking and sanding can have you out in the shop swearing, sweating, and working muscles that you didn't even know you had. After 10 hours of that, if you ain't nursing a backache and or a sixer, you probably ain't doing it right. With the hard part done, it was on to cleaning and masking. Now this step ain't necessarily easy, but it's definitely less labor intensive. The paint we decided to go with was House of Colors Jet Black. We're gonna let this sealer do a lot of the work for us. We're spraying down our first coat of sealer in a black color. Then we'll follow all that up with a couple more coats of black base to set it to perfection.
Well, as we lift the body off of the rotisserie, there's a few safety things you want to think about. You're not only protecting the body of the car, but yourself.
Peyton's right. Dropping this thing on the floor or getting somebody hurt isn't what we're after. Now, if you'll pay attention to our lift in our car right now, you'll notice that a large portion of the body's hanging off the backside of that arm. And what that equals to is when you go to pick it up, it could fall off the lift. Now, in the past, we have taken and put a whole bunch of weights up here in the front floorboard to hold the front end down. But luckily for us right now, our car still has the column and the dash, so we have that added weight. You just got to make sure you know what you're doing whenever you go to pick this thing up.
Well, luckily for us, our lift has these rubber pads on the feet, and that protects the body. Some guys will use 2x4s or whatever else they can get their hands on, and that's a recipe for disaster. Your shiny new body could end up on the floor.
Oh God, cars are shaking. This car is shaking. Oh yeah, perfect. We just need to put bolts in. Coming up next, it's time to fuel up as we walk through our gas tank installation. We've got to install a new bushing kit so that we can mount our body onto the chassis. And what we decided to go with is a setup that basically is straight OEM. Now, what that means is these are a rubber bushing. There are companies out there that offer them in more of the urethane setup. You also have to pay attention to each and every placement of these bushings because they have different thicknesses and diameters, and even some of them don't allow a bolt to pass through them. And getting these kind of mismatched, well, what you run into is once you try to cinch it down, you can actually tweak the body and the doors and trunk won't open properly. So pay attention to where they go. But luckily for us, our kit also comes with a handy little chart that tells us exactly where this stuff needs to go.
Did you just keep all these up there?
Yeah, I kept all of them over here.
Yeah, this car actually only had them, I think, on the outside. This car had those bushings up front.
Rail needs to go that way in the back. Ooh. What do you think?
That should be close enough.
She just slid down. It's close right there, buddy. Let her down.
Yeah, I didn't hear any catastrophic failures, so.
All right, come on up. Put that in there. Will it work? Let's see. Nope. So,
Yeah, don't say.
I'll have another nut. I need you to go out there and get a, it's 7/16 is what they are. I need like 2. We've got our body on and we're continuing to check off the things on our to-do list. A while back, we went ahead and ran our hard lines that go from the tank to the engine. So now we need to mount our pump and the tank itself. If you choose to use a pump that's externally mounted, there's a couple of things that you need to do. One of them is to mount it lower than the tank because that helps to keep the pump fed whenever the fuel is siphoned from the tank. Another is to mount the pump as close to the tank as possible. Normally, these type of pumps work a whole lot better whenever they're pushing the fuel from the tank up to the engine, as opposed to mounting the pump way up there and it having to draw it up to the front of the car. So with that said, things can get a little complicated whenever you're trying to find the perfect location. Plus, if you're getting close to suspension, you gotta stay away from it, along with your exhaust. Luckily for us, Holley has the answer that we need as far as a one-stop shop. What they offer is an EFI conversion kit that has everything like the tank, pump, sender, fill neck, and even the straps to mount it all. I need to go get a tape measure and I'll be right back. I'm gonna start off by measuring to see how deep the tank is. It's right at 6 inches. That one should be the same. And we'll take a mark on here, 6 inches, and set my sender over there. Mark where I'm gonna cut my tube. This one is supposed to be 1 inch shy, so that'll go right there. Before you get too carried away, put your clamp in there. It'll make us a little easier on us. This is one of them type of tools that's pretty handy. It lets you know if you accidentally leave it on. That's pretty handy. It helps you to keep from using up electricity whenever it's not in use, and serenades you. So it helps to like lower your blood pressure. Y'all heard of white noise? This is just heated white noise. Push that on there. Make sure you're shyer than 6 inches. Now all this here is doing is sealing that little O-ring in there against the wire sleeve. Whenever you go to tighten your hose clamp up, also make sure that it's not on the forward side of the little swollen spot. Give it a little quick twist. It's nice and tight. Oh yeah, we're just shy of our 6-inch mark, so we're good to go. Biden, you got me some zip ties, buddy? Awesome.
Up next, this GTO is gonna get tanked.
Yeah. Now, if you've been following along, you know that we're pushing forward and making progress on our GTO build. We had the body off the frame, and after a trip to the powder coater and a slick black paint job, we snapped in the body bolts and reunited these fresh-faced old acquaintances. We also hit the gas on finalizing our fuel tank. Mark where I'm gonna cut my tube to get it all lined out and installed. Now, sometimes on these things, the whole pattern on here is kind of offset and it only allows you to go in one way. And I bet that's the case for this fuel level sender. Now, we're also using cork gaskets here. Sometimes people get it in their mind that they need to put a bunch of sealer and that kind of thing on here, and that's really not the case. Oftentimes with cork style gaskets, all you need to do is put them on dry. And if you were to use a sealer of some sort, it actually works as a lubricant and oftentimes causes that gasket, when you go to tighten it up, to kind of pinch it. So just try to refrain from doing that type of thing. Drop this in there. Jiggle it around. Let that screw through the gasket. Now, when tightening these things up, there's a little O-ring under the bottom of the head of that screw or bolt. So don't get all crazy and put a cheater pipe on your screwdriver. Just run it down nice and snug. Star pattern. You'll be able to tell when it's snugged up. Now we need to do the modifications that's needed to our fuel sending unit so that everything reads properly once we mount it in the tank. Now, essentially, with your little pivot here that's on the sending unit that works up and down with your little floater here, it needs to be right in the middle of the depth of your tank. Ours is at 6 inches, so we'll have to measure 3 and put this pivot point right there. If you get it too far or too short, well, it will give you an inaccurate reading, and then that'll make your gas gauge read improperly. What we're needing is 3 inches, so we're gonna have to throw some of this stuff away. This is kind of one of those universal parts, and y'all know what that means. That means it doesn't fit anything directly. Now with 3 inches of this thing, I'm gonna make a mark on our pivot. That's where our pivot is. What we need to do, mount her right there. Now with this, you wanna be as close to accurate as possible, but it's kind of like fuel gauge being off ever so slightly. Right there. Maybe bolt cutters. Snip. Oh yeah, I wonder. Thing only goes one way. So let's just see what fits. Put a couple of these screws in to hold the gasket in place. That'll do it. You leaking on that thing?
No, it's where you put that other pad on there.
Oh,
That had
right.
something junk on it.
Need to hook up that fuel sending wire.
It gotta go through the frame right here, right?
Yep. There's a washer that's got to come off there. Got it?
Yep. Ready, keep on keeping on.
Don't do it. Yeah. That'll make it look a lot better. Well, I can't believe it. We got another thing all finished up. Getting that tank under here shortens that list quite a bit. Now it's time to move on to the next one. Up next, we seal the deal to keep our GTO high and dry. You know, there's a lot of parts of the restoration that kind of, let's call it glamorous. And then there's other parts that isn't very exciting at all. This next step that we're going to be doing, well, it ain't nearly as exciting. But when it comes to a quality restoration, it's pretty crucial. What you'll run into is leaks and noise and all that kind of stuff, the things that you don't really want. Now, also, another problem is you can actually damage your car. With your door, this little rubber serves a couple of purposes. One, it keeps it from rattling, along with keeping debris and stuff out of the car. Also, there's little bump stops that kind of space this thing out to keep you from busting up your paint. Plus, not to mention, some of this stuff is seen, and people will judge you by the quality of your work, by what they're looking at. This old rubber up here is all dry rotted and cracked and looks really bad. What's great about most of this type of stuff, it usually doesn't cost you a whole lot of money, and you make a vast improvement. I'm kind of wiggling this thing back and forth. Kind of helps to separate it. Now with it, we're not trying to save it by any means, but we also don't want to mess our car up either. Channel that it sits in on both sides, inside and out. I'm just working the outside piece first, and that lets it just fall out of the other one. Might should have pulled this out before I painted this car, but it'll be fine either way. This is definitely one of those kind of tasks you got to have some patience. However, it will do one thing for sure, doing this type of work, it'll make a mess. Now, whenever you're ordering your weather strip, it's always a good idea to kind of hold off until you need it. You don't want this stuff sitting around for a couple of years if your project's going to take that long, because with it sitting on the shelf, it firms up over time. Now, we picked this stuff up from Steele Rubber Group, and we've used a lot of their products in the past. So whenever you're using something like this, you always want a good quality part, and that's the reason why we went with Steele. Whenever you go to put these things in, this end right here is what locates everything. You gotta mount it here at the base of it and then work it up and all the way over. What I prefer to do before I put any adhesive at all in here is kind of get it set into place. Now this thing kind of has a little groove it's got to set in. Got it roughed into place at first, and then I like to come and work everything in. You want that seam nice and tight up against that piece of stainless steel. Sometimes it takes a little finesse, if you will. Just keep working it. Next thing you know, it looks nice and pretty. If it comes out or if it's loose, that tells you what you need to know. Now we're gonna hold off on putting the weather strip that goes all the way around the door right now because I don't have the glass in it, and we're planning to upgrade to power windows, and that's a whole nother thing that we're gonna have to get into. So what I'm gonna go ahead and install is our two little bump stops that go here inside the door. Now, oftentimes when guys install these, you'll see them grab a little screwdriver, and what they'll try to do is kind of mash this little cone inside of there. But what you'll run into is if you're not careful, this thing will actually shear that little stud off, and then this thing is basically useless. The way I prefer to do it is make sure that you use plenty of lubrication. Basically, some glass cleaner will get the job done. Now, sometimes with this thing, you can basically just really push it hold the pressure on it, and it'll go. In this instance, it didn't work like that, but that's okay. It's one of them little tasks that in all reality sounds like it's super easy. Next thing you know, 20 minutes spent just putting rubber bumpers in. Some dudes want to use other forms of lubricant like oil or grease or something like that. I don't like using that stuff in this instance because that stuff will stay on the surface. This glass cleaner will evaporate basically and go away. Where that oil, what it can do is actually make it easier for this thing to come out because it's got a lubricant still on the little studs. So that one, that pairs on. Door even closes better now. Yeah, it looks pretty good for one of them one-coat rollers. Nah, I'm kidding, guys. You know, we've had a pretty good day today. We got the car painted, most of the panels are sprayed, the fuel tank is installed, plus we've started installing some weather stripping. We still have plenty to do, and that's easy to see, but I'm here to tell you, I've had all I want for the day. We'll see y'all next time. Good thing we get paid by the hour.